we have some interesting developments here in the bond market and the DXY. We talk about this all the time. The DXY, the relative strength of the dollar, and the bond market, the 10-year treasury, kind of the benchmark yield, are the dog that's wagging the tail, period. This is why this is such an effect to you, and you have to understand it. You have to know this in order to actually have wealth and preserve wealth going forward. And the one thing I see people get very all over the place, very wrong, I guess, if you will, is they keep confusing timelines and time horizons. I'm a very long-term, low time preference, long-term investor. So the things that I do, I want to be upfront. The things that I say, a lot of it has to do with investing for the long term. I'm talking 5-10 years minimum time horizon. There's a lot of like traders, hedge fund guys. I mean, they're talking weeks, months, quarters, and a year maybe. Like that's how a lot of them talk. A lot of macro guys even, that's like macro to them. But to me, that's not. I'm talking 5-10 years. I know the end game because we can see all the moving pieces in a long time horizon. It's like for example, this is a great example of this. The United States 10-year, watch what we have going on here when you go to all, right? Well, we can see these huge swings. Mike Maloney talks about this all the time. It's these huge swings. You can chart these very easily. You know which direction things are going. So look at this pop down here. We have the yields spiking up. This is basically signaling long-term. Long story short, we got some problems going forward into the future here. In the next year to 5 minimum, we have some real problems, and we have to figure out what we're going to do. The only two solutions, the only two outcomes are a hyperinflationary depression or a deflationary depression. Those are the only two. And my money is on they're going to print their way out of this, the financial repression. We've talked about this a million times over and over again. Ben Bernanke talked about 20 years ago, and then 10 years ago, the IMF playbook. This happened in the 40s here in America as well, where there's tons of really high debt to GDP. We're 100% debt to GDP. Greg Foss, Larry Lepard were just talking about this on Swan Signal YouTube the other day. Great hour and 10-minute talk. Go watch that. And here we have problems. Houston, we have problems. What are we going to do to get ourselves out of this? Are we going to just go into a complete credit crisis and collapse, and the gas stops coming out of the pump and the credit cards stop working? No. So how are you preparing? What are you doing at the end of the day? Becoming your own central bank, becoming the people that are going to thrive in this economic chaos. This is where the fork in the road comes. Are we going to go towards CBDCs and slavery, which is really probably going to be the answer? They're going to keep collapsing things around everyone, try to decimate the middle class. The middle class is always what carries everything and everyone, especially capitalism in general, and always has carried everything. We haven't had capitalism in 110 years since the Fed has come out. However, it can last a long time. The middle class was so strong in America that it's kept everything on its back for so long. And it's being crushed between the millstones of taxation and inflation. As Stalin and Lenin knew, the infamous Soviet leaders in communists, they knew that we just grind the people between these two things. You'll destroy capitalism, you'll destroy the West if you can get that to happen. And that's exactly what we've had happen over the last 100 years, is just lots of taxation, lots of inflation, and you keep grinding people down. Kind of looks like this chart, to be quite honest. This is the American people up here, and they're down here now. This is their standard of living. This is what's happened. And here's their cost. Conversely, here's their cost going up here, and then here's their standard of living down here. So we have to see the frame of how to look at the world, or else things don't make sense. But this is huge, right? So the last 40 years, all you have to do is put your money in stocks, real estate, things like that. Just keep refinancing and rolling over your debt into cheaper and cheaper yields. This is what this was, the 10-year, right? Cheaper and cheaper yield, or cost of capital to lend out, and you just won. Now it's starting to get a little interesting. Now you got to be good, real good at what you're doing to figure out how to play this game. I'm not going to sit here and be a trader and this and that. And there's things we know to do, like hedging, creating hedging trades. Like, if I'm going to go long the S&P, maybe you put a little bit of a short in too. Maybe you're going short a little bit and put 10% in there. That way, if you're wrong, that way it's the short takes off, and your long position may come down, but your short kind of covers that, right? So there's ways to do it. There's ways to buy puts, cover yourself if you have stock, selling calls and puts. There's ways to cover yourself and protect yourself in this world with your hedging and buying insurance in the stock market. You do it when you're buying real estate, buying insurance on your house, buying rental insurance. All of these different ways you can do that. Bitcoin is the ultimate insurance. Again, this is not financial advice. This is freedom advice. This is all this is. This is how to become free, how to remove yourself, become independent, resilient from the system. Period. That is what we do here, questioning everything with boldness and getting to the bottom, hopefully, least towards the bottom of where the real answers are and what's actually happening. Let me tell you this: the real answers they don't lie in a spy balloon up about 60,000 feet above the United States of America. The answers aren't there. If you're going to look at the news, if you're going to look at CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, the answers aren't there. The answers are outside the system. They're in a parallel system being built. For me, that's Bitcoin, the hardest monetary asset ever known to man, ever to be discovered, the greatest computer network to ever, strongest computer network, largest to ever be discovered and then subsequently built. More and more people, the hash rate climbing, more and more people building on it every single day and creating wealth for people, creating a hard monetary standard, hard money standard that people can peg their life to. And Brandon, how about it went down 50%, 60, 70% in the last year? You're thinking in fiat terms. Fiat's garbage. Fiat's going the way of the dodo bird. That, bye, gone. No fiat currencies ever existed. So Bitcoin will be priced in the tens of millions, hundreds of millions eventually in fiat dollars, because fiat dollars are worthless. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. It's a new monetary standard to be on. And when you're in a world where Bitcoin is the standard, you're paying in Bitcoin or you're paying in Satoshis. You're not converting to dollars. That's not how life's going to work 10, 20, 30 years from now. It just won't. In the next 5 years, 10 years, maybe it does. But decades from now, ain't going to happen. Everything's going to be priced in Bitcoin. Energy's going to be priced in Bitcoin. It's a perfect trade. Bitcoin's already in the energy sector through mining, captured gas flaring, stranded energy, building cities that with energy that never were able to have it before, stabilizing grids. Most people have no idea. They have no idea what's going on. So to me, the system's collapsing. It's unraveling. We've never had this amount of debt in the system before globally, all the central banks. So we got to look at these things. This is what wags the dog. The bond market, the United States 10-year jumped 3.74 today. So huge jumps here, huge jumps. There's alarm bells going off everywhere at global central banks. They are like, oh boy, high alert right now. This is really interesting. And then, actually, we'll get to that in a second. So you can see all the stocks, bunch of stocks down. Tesla down 5%, crazy. Excuse me, stocks down, a little bit over the last couple of days as well. Because this is what's happening when you have this tightening, when you have people going and selling off their treasuries. They're jumping into the dollar a lot of times. They're raising cash. That's why the Forex on the Forex here, the DXY, that's why it's jumped. That's why you've seen this jump over the last couple of days. So these big moves are what to watch. So now we really are, like I said, like a week ago, we got to watch this because we had this little jump. Well, now it's kind of continuing. So we got to keep a close eye on this, see what's going on. This next week or two is going to be very interesting to see. Does it keep climbing, or is it kind of stave off and then kind of drop again? Then we'll know. Okay, they're pumping liquidity back into the markets again. So this is it, guys. Oil's back up to dang near $80 a barrel. That is very interesting. Up 2%. Jeez. Gold and silver again, just kind of flat. They've got knocked down a little bit over the last week or so. But at the end of the day, like I said, this is the most important thing to see. What is the 10-year Treasury doing? It's spiking again. And let's zoom out here actually a little bit. So again, look at this chart. I mean, I think this was probably the best one to see too, even long term. You see this trend line that really was hammered, So now you have this, and it's broken out of that, right? So we have to really pay attention and see what's going on. You got to be careful. This is not a time to be super fancy. This is not a time to be going crazy. You have to be very careful in this environment. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on this and what you're seeing in your part of the world, wherever you may be. I know we have a lot of people internationally that have watched this channel, stuff like that. Let me know. So you can see this breaking out of this trend. You have to be very careful with what you're doing right now. There are so many people that are like, hey, we're bullish right now. There's liquidity going back in the market. And that's true. There is. That's short term. It really is short term. I'm a believer that, again, long term, 6, 12 months minimum, it's going to be some fireworks. You see, again, another email from liquidity I got. There's 20 bullet points with the headline roundup, and 10 of them are people cutting jobs again. So I don't know when that merry-go-round stops. I don't know when the music stops, but it's coming at some point. The piper is going to have to be paid. My guess is that it's going to be when the CBDCs are ready, and I don't know when that is. Who knows? Then they're going to let the shoe drop. Then they'll let the guillotine come down, and people be screaming in the streets, literally, and save me, pay off my house. I can't afford my house. I'm losing my house. This is what I've said too for a long time. People will not get kicked out of their homes. People will be screaming, for reparations. They'll be screaming for people to help them. This is, look at the Johnson family on their I don't know why I have a old VHS cam on their iPhone, like showing people getting kicked out of their houses. That won't last long. And it's just not, we already see the student loan stuff going on. We're going to have this situation where people are going to get bailed out, these debt jubilees, things like that. It's just people don't have an appetite for accountability or responsibility. That's quite honestly what it comes down to at the end of the day. So we have to be cognizant of that. We have to prepare accordingly and understand that this is coming. Even the people that win at the end of the day, I think that all of us that follow this, we get resilient and independent. Bitcoin, gold, silver, food, energy, water, land, energy, building community. Community is the number one thing. This is why the community is the number one thing, because all those other things can fail, and they could be stolen from you, taxed away from you. You know, people that are holding Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's at 500,000 a coin or $1 million a coin in 5 years from now or 8 years from now. You're going to be possibly looked at as a villain. You know, maybe that's a possibility. And you're like, hey, how did you know? You jumped in and figured out what was going on and you won? Like, that's not fair. I mean, can you see that happening? I can surely see that happening. So we have to be very cognizant of the effects of the cultural gut rot we have going on, the lack of accountability, the lack of responsibility in this world. It's a very real thing. We have to be aware. That's why we have to get better mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. You got to get right. You have to get right to be able to withstand what's happening and what's coming. So let me know your thoughts. That's a quick market roundup for the day. I had some other headlines to share. Maybe we'll share that in some separate videos potentially. But just things like, and I'll just touch on it here. Ron Johnson calling Social Security, Medicare a Ponzi scheme, because it is. You can't have someone that you're taking payments from a younger person, a new person, and then giving them to an older participant. That is a Ponzi scheme by definition, and there's nothing there. How is the money not there? If you paid in, shouldn't you get that money back out? Because they spent all of it. They took it and did something else with it. If you and I did that, we'd be in prison. Yet the government is totally fine, because they can just print more of it and then cause inflation, which is expansion of currency, the monetary supply, rising the prices for you. And now your house is 10 times as much to buy, or your eggs are 10 times as much to buy. So you're welcome. You got your payout, but you're paying 100 times more in prices everywhere. So this is absolute clown world. Gary Gensler saying that not your keys, not your coins, coming after crypto, staking, all that stuff. Like we've told you guys a million times here, crypto is not Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is not crypto. Bitcoin is a asset without an issuer. It's a digital commodity, and it's the future. And all the other crypto stuff is a complete scam, it's a complete waste of time, and it's holding humanity back from the progress it can be making. So Gary Gensler came out and said that, filed, or they have Kraken settled their $30 million suit. So that was fascinating. Really, really interesting, actually. And then you have McCarthy coming out and saying he likes Bitcoin again. He said it 4 years ago, I believe, the Speaker of the House. Now he just said it again. And this is at the end of the day. And then 1.1 million Bitcoin coming off of exchanges over the last year. I mean, this is huge too. 1.1 million Bitcoin coming off exchanges over the last couple of years. And there's only a couple million on exchange still. So again, get your assets into your own custody. Please get your assets into your own custody. Please take care of them. And we'll all be better off for it. So a lot of great things, a lot of just bombshell stuff going on, quite honestly. So really fascinating, and we got to stay on high alert. That really is the biggest thing. So McCarthy, here you can see, so he's saying he likes Bitcoin. Gensler, filing or settling, I think $30 million, settling a suit with Kraken for getting rid of their staking program. And then Ron Johnson saying that Medicare and Medicaid is a Ponzi scheme, which it is. So you can't. Where does it all go? Where does it go at the end of the day? If you had it in there and then now you spent it on something or someone else. So that's by the way, we did an article on this and how you can fix Social Security and the 401ks just by putting a little bit into Bitcoin over the next 10 years, what it can do and what it will do. And the last thing I'll say is that people that are worried about the government coming in, like, oh, we're going to ban Bitcoin and stuff like that. A lot of smart people too, right? A lot of dumb people saying that, a lot of smart people saying that. That you are admitting there's a lot of Bitcoiners in that are more and more coming into Congress, right? Like we said, the Speaker of the House, for crying out loud. There's people that I know that Jason Lowery apparently has had meetings with the White House already about Bitcoin, and they put out negative things about it as well. However, we know that if Bitcoin is good for all of us and gives freedom to all people, equal playing field for all, that's something every American should want. That's something that helps both left and right, because there really is no left and right. It's just people. It's just humans. Left and right is a construct of media. It's a construct of political talking heads, and they pit us together or against each other to distract us from what's really going on, which is destroying the money. So if we know that as the lens, the frame of which everything happens, then we can really start getting down to, okay, if we just fix the money, then we start fixing the world, right? That's why that's a saying in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin helped dissolve that and start healing all these wounds. And at the end of the day, if we can't change Congress, if you can't vote new people in who respect Bitcoin, respect freedom and property rights and code and free speech, which is what Bitcoin is, all those things, then we're admitting right here and now that we have no say in government, that our vote doesn't matter, elections don't matter. That's what we're saying. Because we can vote in new people. We can vote in someone that's going to be pro-Bitcoin. And that's the crux of what's happening here. So don't be scared about things like that. You know, be an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneurial mindset and say, hey, I'm going to create the future. We're going to create the future that we want to see, not just sit back and, oh, what's the government going to give us? That is not how life works. We are the government. The government answers to us at the consent of the government. It's in our founding documents. Please, I think we go through in the channel, I think a year ago we went back in the channel and reviewed the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and looked at it and put it in here. This is something that America is founded that way. So government could uphold the rule of law, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and protect our rights. Not there to give us our rights. Those come from above. Government's there just to protect those unalienable rights. That's it, period. Appreciate you guys so much. And appreciate your time and energy. It's the most important asset we have. Truly, it's the only finite asset we have. Bitcoin is time and time is Bitcoin. The only two finite assets that I know of. So please, let me know your thoughts on all this and what else you would like to see, what else you'd like to dig deeper in, and just appreciate you. Please just share it with someone else and let us know what you would like to see going forward. But please share it with someone that you think might get something out of this, and maybe we're just talking about it. It's hard to be a messiah in your own town, right? So maybe someone needs to see it from someone else's mouth, right? So I appreciate you more than you know. This is not financial advice. This is freedom advice. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.